A lot of people enter retirement with more financial clutter than they ever realize. Imagine walking into retirement carrying 5 heavy suitcases. One's full of some old investment accounts that you've probably forgotten about. One's packed with maybe some expensive debt. One contains insurance policies that you just don't need anymore. Another is stuffed with some concentrated stock positions that could have massive risk in retirement. And the last one is filled with expenses that quietly drain thousands of dollars from your savings every single year. Now, here's the problem: most people spend years building wealth for retirement, but very few spend the time cleaning up the financial clutter that's accumulated along the way. And sometimes the difference between a stressful retirement and a confident retirement isn't about earning more money. It's about simplifying what you already have. And in this video, I want to walk you through 5 financial items worth reviewing before you retire. Not necessarily because you need to sell all of them or that every time this will apply to your situation. It's because each one can quietly affect how much flexibility, income, and confidence you have once retirement begins. Hi, I'm Chris Knight with Cornerstone Wealth Planning. If you're approaching retirement and wondering whether all the pieces of your financial life are actually working together, this video will give you a practical checklist to start with. And if you'd like help building a coordinated retirement plan that looks at everything from investments to taxes to Social Security, retirement income, healthcare, and your estate planning, then there's a link in the description where you can schedule a free call with our team. Okay, let's begin. So item number 1, old accounts that are just scattered everywhere. Now, this is one of the most common things we see when someone starts getting really serious about retirement. They may have a current 401k for where they're still working, 1 or 2 old 401ks. Now they have this other IRA over here, maybe a Roth IRA, and a brokerage account, lots of savings accounts, maybe a pension they're still making some decisions on. And possibly there's an account they haven't even looked at closely in years. Now, individually, none of this really may seem like a major problem, but when retirement begins, these accounts have to do more than just sit there and grow. They need to help you create income, they need to be coordinated for taxes, they need to fit into your overall investment strategy, they need to have the right beneficiaries on file, and they need to be easy enough to manage when life becomes more complicated later on. And that's where simply having scattered accounts can really create major problems. So the issue is not just organization. The issue is that every account may have different tax rules, different investment strategies, different beneficiaries on file, and different withdrawal implications and taxes as you use them throughout retirement. So the question becomes, how do you build an efficient retirement income strategy if your money is spread over many different accounts in many different places with no clear system of how they should all work together? So sometimes consolidation does make sense in retirement. Sometimes it could make sense to keep some of these separate. And then sometimes the answer simply depends on your taxes, the investment options, the fees. Does it have creditor protections? And also, where does it fit into your overall retirement income strategy? So the point is not to just consolidate everything blindly. The point is to understand what you own, where it is, and what role each account is supposed to play. So one of the first things we do in the planning process is that we create a very clear and concise personal balance sheet. So what do you own? What do you owe? Where are these accounts located? What is each account designed to accomplish for you in retirement? And that clarity right there alone can reduce a lot of stress. Because once retirement begins, your accounts are no longer just accumulation vehicles. They become a part of your bigger overall retirement income system, and income planning becomes much easier when you know exactly what you want and how everything fits together. So item number 2, concentrated stock positions. So there's a few ways to review what's known as concentrated stock. So maybe you've worked for one company for decades and you just accumulate this employer stock over the years. And maybe you've also received stock options, or you inherited shares from a family member. Or maybe one investment has simply outperformed and has been extremely well over time and became a much larger part of your portfolio than you ever originally intended. So at first, that can feel like a good problem to have, and sometimes it certainly is. But the closer that you get to retirement, the more important it is that it becomes that you ask about whether that risk still makes sense. Because your retirement portfolio has done a different job back then than what it should do now as you enter into retirement. Because then it was accumulation. And then now we're in this phase now where we want to protect what has been built. And so the job is different back while you were building wealth versus where we are today. Now, that's certainly we're not here to win a stock picking contest, but these investments need to make sense so that they support your lifestyle, your retirement income, they help you manage risk appropriately, and ultimately help you stay financially secure as much as possible over time and in retirement. So if one company stock represents 10%, 20%, 30%, maybe even 50%, then retirement can become really heavily dependent on the future of that one stock, that one business, that one holding. So even great companies, this is what we often forget, even great companies can have bad years and lose significant value. The history is full of businesses that once looked dominant, but they eventually struggle, not just a quarter, but a year, maybe a couple years. And at times, unfortunately, they can disappear altogether. And so the question is not simply, is this a good company? The better question is this an appropriate amount of risk for my long-term retirement plan? Now, before selling anything, certainly taxes matter a whole lot. Capital gains will matter, your tax brackets matter, your retirement income timing matters, things that you can do otherwise for tax solutions such as Roth conversion opportunities also matter. So this is where integrated retirement planning becomes so important because the investment decision cannot be separated from the tax decision. And the tax decision cannot be separated from the retirement income decision. Everything is interconnected. And that's a big reason why people like to come to a place like Cornerstone Wealth Planning is because we seek to not just provide investment advice, but because we can help you connect all the dots between your investments, your taxes, your retirement income, Social Security timing, healthcare, and your estate planning. So if that's something you'd like help thinking through, there's a link below where you can schedule a call with our team. Okay, let's continue. So number 3, often we'll see insurance policies that you no longer need. Now this one surprises lots of people because many retirees just keep paying premiums for policies they bought during a very different stage of life. Now don't get me wrong, don't go out and cash out policies right away, but certainly need to be thinking about this as a part of the overall integrated plan. And so think about why life insurance is often purchased in the first place. It's primarily for income replacement. There are other reasons, but that's usually one of the top ones. You want to protect young children, your spouse, you want to pay off a mortgage, replace your lost earnings, and then again, just provide this long-term security for your spouse. Now those needs are very real. They may have been very important 20 or 30 years ago, but retirement often changes the picture overall. Now, the mortgage could be paid off, your children may be financially independent and off your payroll, your retirement assets could have really become now very substantial for you alone. And so the original reason for that policy, it may not exist in the same way any longer. Now, this doesn't automatically mean to go out and cancel your coverage because some policies can remain very valuable. Some support estate planning goals, others provide liquidity for your heirs. Others may make sense for many other reasons, and some could have cash value that you should review very carefully before cashing it in, also because of the tax implications potentially. And some policies may still serve this very important purpose in your overall plan. But the point is to review each policy intentionally by asking one simple question. What purpose does this policy serve today and through retirement for me? Not about when you bought it, not about when your kids were younger, not about when you needed more replacement of your income, as that was the main thing that your family depended upon. But today and looking forward. So because you may discover that you're spending thousands of dollars per year on coverage that no longer fits your goals. Or you could discover that the policy still plays a very important and effective role. But either way, you want to make that decision intentionally. You don't want to make it passively and it being a decision that just sort of is there, but one that is made intentionally. Because in retirement, every ongoing expense has to be supported by your overall income plan. So if an expense no longer serves a meaningful purpose, it may be worth redirecting that towards other things: travel, family experiences, charitable giving, funding healthcare costs, or just simply improving your day to day lifestyle. This brings us to number 4. Let's understand these expenses that quietly pressure your plan. The fourth item is the one that most people or many people tend to underestimate: looking at the overall expenses. And a lot of retirement planning focuses on more of the balance sheet or the assets and less about the income and the expenses. So the balance sheet would be looking at things like what you've saved, your assets, your overall liquid investments, but expenses here are just as important because expenses determine how much your income needs to be from your portfolio to allow it to provide what you need long term to live off of. So, real simple, we can use an example. So, we have 2 retirees and each have $1 million invested. Let's say one needs $40,000 per year from the portfolio and the other needs $70,000 per year. So, we have the same portfolio value, but really different retirement plan outcomes. Why? Not just because the income need is different, but because overall the percentage that we're taking out of that portfolio can be quite significantly different between that 40,000 and 70,000. So that's why we spend so much time helping clients understand the term of their retirement income gap. So real simple, this income gap is the difference between what's coming in guaranteed, so Social Security and pensions and maybe some rental income, and then what's going out on an ongoing basis. And so that smaller that gap, the less pressure you place on your investments. The larger percentage or larger the gap, the harder your portfolio has to work to provide that ongoing income gap. And that's where reviewing major expenses becomes so important. Do we still want to have the same house long term? What vehicles will we maintain long term? Are we properly accounting for taxes that will certainly be a part of the long term plan as we take dollars out of our retirement income? Are subscriptions, memberships, insurance premiums, or lifestyle expenses quietly adding up that we didn't realize were all cumulatively there? Are we going to look to downsize potentially? Would that improve our flexibility in our plan? Would simplifying one major expense make the entire retirement plan just easier to manage and provide more long-term flexibility? Sometimes that answer is no, and that's perfectly fine. There's no reason to cut expenses if they're not needed, but the goal is to make sure we're spending intentionally. So some expenses are worth keeping because they improve your quality of life and your enjoyment in retirement. So while others may create stress without adding much value, certainly keeping the ones that are of great value is certainly personal and important. And sometimes one thoughtful change can reduce the pressure on your portfolio. And lowering your withdrawal rate and creating more freedom in retirement often comes with a lot of peace of mind. All right, this brings us to number 5, which is understanding expensive debt before retirement. So expensive debt deserves serious attention before retirement begins. So while you're working, future income can sometimes help offset any previous financial decisions or if there's any financial mistakes. But once you retire, your assets often become that backup plan. So this be unfortunate sort of decisions, maybe if there's things like credit card debt that's accumulated, if you have personal loans, if you have high interest vehicle loans, and maybe even a high interest home equity loan. These can all create a fixed drag on the retirement cash flow. And unlike a market downturn, high interest debt does not require a prediction. You know what the cost will be. The cost is usually right there in front of you and can be quite high at times. And so I know this is not what maybe a lot of folks are dealing with, but if you have credit card interest at 18%, certainly getting that paid off before retirement can make a lot of sense. And also the same thing as you look at other rates on other fixed loans. So in many cases, eliminating that debt can create a better financial outcome than trying to out-invest and out-earn it. So in other words, it's hard to out earn that 18% on a credit card or even a 7 or 8% rate on a auto loan. That can be very challenging to do and may require you to take excess risk. Now, questions are, does everyone need to pay off that mortgage before retirement? Well, not necessarily. It's a very nuanced discussion. It has to look at interest rates, cash flow, taxes, alternative investment opportunities, and even just what your personal comfort is. And all these things need to be taken into full account. But expensive consumer debt is usually much easier to evaluate. So the less fixed debt expense you carry into retirement, the more flexibility that you create. And the flexibility is one of the most valuable assets a retiree can have, that plus peace of mind. So before you retire, it's worth reviewing whether these 5 important areas need attention. So just to recap, old accounts that need to be organized or consolidated, concentrated stock positions that you may not even realize that you have that could create unnecessary risk, insurance policies that may no longer serve their original intent and purpose, and looking at very important expense items related to your home, vehicle, and lifestyle that may be inadvertently increasing your income gap without you realizing it. And lastly, looking at any expensive debt, high interest rate debt that drains your retirement cash flow. Now, interesting enough, have you noticed here this combination of 5 items, what they all have in common? They don't require predicting the markets. They don't require finding the next great investment. They don't require earning more money or working longer. They're all about creating clarity. And clarity creates confidence because when your financial life is organized, retirement becomes much easier to understand. You know what you own, you know what you owe, you know what's coming in each month, you know what your expenses are that are going out. From there, you can simply calculate your income gap, your liquid assets, your withdrawal rate, and those numbers matter because they show whether your retirement plan is actually working together and if it will be sustainable long term. This is exactly what we help clients think through at Cornerstone Wealth Planning. So if you'd like help building a retirement plan that connects your investments, taxes, Social Security, retirement income, healthcare planning, and estate planning, and I invite you to click the link in the description to schedule a free call with our team, because a strong retirement plan is just not about having enough money. It's about making sure all moving pieces are organized, coordinated, integrated, and working together towards the same overall goal. And that's the difference between entering retirement with financial clutter and entering retirement with a plan that's easier to manage, understand, enjoy, and do that for the long term. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.